Yeah, buddy. Let's go ahead and move on down the list. Well, I'm going to come to you on this one. Tight ends. We know about our guy Logan Thomas. Again, dealing with injuries and trying to come back from all that. What are your thoughts on this, man? Do we need to move on from him? And are we looking tight end in the first round?
No, we are not going after Brock Bowers. As good as tempting as he is, no. But this is the really interesting part of the offseason is what do we do with Logan Thomas? Because he is due in 2024 for a salary increase to make $8 million a year. And if they were to cut him, he is only a dead cap of less than $2 million. So you're going to have a $6 to $7 million savings on Logan Thomas that you could reallocate somewhere else. If we're already going to have $70 to $80 million, you add that on top of it, you're going to be able to get, you're going to be able to put that into a more to a player that maybe it's another starter for you, an impact player. So that's where it's going to be interesting to see what they do. We also got to figure out with this offense again, what is Cliff Kingsbury going to value? He did go out and trade for Zach Ertz. So yeah, I don't necessarily think you want to say that tight end is not valued. People are saying, oh, the air raid, you would need 4 wide receivers. He needs a blocking tight end. Maybe, or maybe he's going to do something different, or maybe he wants to incorporate all of it. There's a couple free agents. A lot of the fans are talking about Dalton Schultz, the dude who came from Dallas, went to Houston, had a pretty good season. Mm-hmm. Who's to see if Houston's not going to, want to keep him around? There's other, pass catchers that people have talked about, Noah Fant, the fact that people don't feel has gotten a real good opportunity. And could he be a pass catching weapon? A Harrison Bryant or Austin Hooper, both guys who were at Cleveland, kind of the same type of player. The guy I want is going to be low cost, very, very low cost. I want a guy from San Francisco by the name of Charlie Woerner. All right. He's not going to wow you, but he can do all the little things solid. Okay, he may be your better version of a John Bates. And I want him because coming out of the draft 4 or 5 years ago, he was Chris Cooley's #1 rated tight end. I take that back. He loved Hockenson the most. And then right after that, he said, Charlie Woerner is the next guy that I would take, knowing that we weren't going to get Hockenson. And so I would bring that guy in. And he may know Anthony Lynn's run scheme, just someone who may know some of the playbook things to do. So that would be my first sign. I got some ideas for the draft, but I want you to get a chance to talk.
Yeah, no, I think we definitely think it's time for us to move on from Logan Thomas, and shout out to Ab, who 3 years ago was saying we need to get ahead of this and we need to move on from him. But unfortunately, we know none of us would have been able to predict the injury and how all that stuff played out. And he was able to get paid, but to your point, I just don't. Again, it's about justifying this money on the books, and I just don't think that we can give this guy this money, because I think we are in another direction, especially at the very least, we know we're going to go faster. We know we're going to start to maybe use tempo, maybe, start stretch the field, that type of stuff. With Logan's injuries, he can't do that right now. You know what I mean? And who knows, he might get back, to full health or whatever, but I do think it might be, I think it'll be very beneficial for us to go elsewhere and get a tight end. You mentioned Ertz. I love that. I absolutely love that. We were looking at Irv Smith last year. I like that. Let's get a guy that can play, that maybe his upside is his blocking. You know what I mean? Look, we've seen what Bates can do. You know what I mean? He's a blocker and a possession receiver, but he's not separating from anybody. I still think we need somebody that can separate, and I think we could potentially get that later in the draft. But I'm focused right now, as far as us, on kind of, I hate to say this, but wiping our hands of Logan Thomas and kind of moving on from him. And not even no ill will. He's done great for us, but I think his time has kind of come. He was one of those guys that was premier in Ron Rivera's system and everything, and it worked great for that time. But I think his time has run out with us. So, what you said you were looking at the draft. Outside of My mind's fixed on last year. Brock Bowers. Where else are you looking?
You actually turned me on to this guy, so I could figure, the dude Jatavian Sanders from Texas. I mean, what a weapon that he could be. I can speak on the dude from Florida State, Jaheim Bell. I mean, he played at South Carolina, went to Florida State. He's probably someone who just has never reached his potential in college, but he is an athletic specimen. He is a weapon. So as you're talking about someone who can separate, that could be those guys. I've heard a lot of good things about the Kansas State tight end. All right. He's kind of that overall can do a little everything pretty well, nothing very spectacular. He's not going to run away from players, but he may be someone who can be your everyday tight end. And then there's a couple guys later in the rounds you talked about. Penn State's Theo Johnson, Minnesota's Span Ford. He's a big target, but he's got soft hands, catches everything. So he really could be someone. The thing I failed to mention when we were talking earlier, we don't know what the team's going to do with Armani Rogers. And he was slated to be really a big part of this offense before he got hurt. And so we may have an in-house candidate for some of these guys, and we don't have to, we see it as a whole, but maybe we don't have to put the draft capital into it. Maybe we don't have to put the high free agency, dollars into it if we got someone on this roster that can fill.
Right. Right. And again, that's the other thing is how we still don't know exactly how these coaches view those players. You know what I mean? And if they look at it like we do, they might look at it like Will said earlier, where it was like, we can use them. They have a skill set that we can definitely use, and it would, help our offense grow and things of that nature. So we don't know how they're going to analyze these guys or evaluate those guys. Because like you say, we've seen flashes from Rodgers. We've seen it, but best ability is availability. If you can't stay on the field, it's just hard to keep it with that. But I wouldn't have a problem with him. I would not have a problem with him. But I do think we're looking elsewhere at tight end, at the very least for getting depth and everything like that.
Dun, 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 dun.
Let's go. The Washington Commanders. There it is.